Hello and welcome back to another episode of Distro Drag. Today we're on semi-final part 2. Here we're going to find out who's going to go through to the finals and face off against OpenSUSE. Okay, let's get straight into the benchmarks and see what the results look like. So first up, we got Cyberpunk 2077 using ray tracing. Here we can see that our averages are pretty similar, although Manjaro just edges it out with 50.2 versus around 58 for the rest, and Aaron getting 44 for the lowest result. The maximums were also pretty much same at 59 and 61, with our minimums sitting at all around 40, but Anduin having a slight edge at 42 and Manjaro 41. But overall, just based on the averages, I'm going to give this one to Manjaro with 50.2 average. Onto Resident Evil Requiem. This is just rasterization at Ultra. You can see that we're getting quite similar frames, except for Anduin, which is falling behind with 159 frames per second versus Aaron's 166, Manjaro's 164, and Nobara's 161. If we look at our 1% lows, more or less the same at about 115. Aaron OS just edges it out a little bit with 121 and Anduin with 119. But at the end of the day, these are pretty much the same. I'd give Anduin the loss and Aaron the win. Onto dirtrally. Again, a very similar result, not much between them. Our max frame rates are between 380 and 390 FPS, but our averages are all around 280, with the maximum being 289 for Anduin and the minimum being 281 for Nobara. The minimums are all around the same at about 170 to 180, so not much of a difference. So overall, I'm going to give the win to Anduin for having the best lows and averages, but not much difference between the two. Then if we look at Counter-Strike 2, this is the only test where we can see a real big difference, with Anduin falling behind the rest. But Manjaro, Aaron, and Nobara all have similar averages at around 680 to 690, and with 1% lows at around 260. So really not much of a difference. Like I said, it's just Anduin who falls behind with 1% low. Then that brings us to our overall aggregate. I'm just going to use the averages and 1% lows over here, as it tells a bigger story than the 0.1%, which could also just be run-to-run variance. So if we look at those metrics, we can see that Manjaro just edges it out with 300 average frames per second. Aaron just behind at 295, Nobara at 293, and Anduin quite a bit less at 281. If we look at our minimums and our 1% lows, Manjaro gets 149.8, Aaron 147.7, Nobara 146.6, and Anduin at 148.4. So although these are all super close, Manjaro just has a slight edge with a 300 average FPS and 149.8 minimums. So the winner is going to be Manjaro. Not very surprising, as it is an Arch-based rolling distro, so it comes with the newest drivers, the newest kernels, all the latest tweaks, etc. So I'm not surprised that it is performing as well as it is. I was a little bit surprised at Nobara. I thought Nobara would do a little bit better than Aaron and Anduin, but the results speak for themselves. So this is the end of the semi-final. We're going to move on to the final now, where we will put Manjaro against the last winner, which was OpenSUSE. I'm going to be changing or adding games again for the final. I'm going to be doing a total of about 7 or 8 games, just so that we can see which one actually has the biggest difference. As we can see, when we go to GPU-bound scenarios, the differences between distros are often either comes down to the Mesa version or run-to-run variant. So I'm going to try get some games that have a little bit more CPU dependencies and a little bit higher frame rate, so that we can see which distro actually has the most stable frame. It's quite clear from this test that all of these distros are more than capable of playing games and being fine. I'm sure coming from Windows, you probably won't notice a difference if you didn't have a FPS counter. I'm just here to see which one is overall the most rock solid stable. So stay tuned for the final coming up tomorrow, and leave a like, leave a comment, and let me know what you guys thought about this. And until then, have fun and be safe. Bye!